Ryan Lovejoy here from Miniature Monthly, and we just got back from Kingdom Con. Yeah, boy. Alright, I'm super excited about this episode. We're going to be doing some airbrush blending. Basically, it's a hybrid of paintbrush, airbrush, back and forth, giving you some really good results, and it's fast. So come on, let's get going on this. Alright, well, what colors are we going to use today? All the same colors we used in the last video. We're homeward bound on this project, and I like having all my colors available just in case I need to use all of them. From Formula P3, we have Iosin Green, Cygnus Yellow, Khador Red Base, and one of my favorites, Coal Black. From Citadel, we have Mournfang Brown and Baylor Brown. And to wrap it up, we've got Reaper Master Series Solid Black HD. And don't forget the Schmincke Titanium White. Alright, so we're going to put some final details into the skin and the face here. Just grabbing from the colors we have on our palette. I'm going to grab the Iosin Green and some black. And I want to make like a light greenish gray. It's very desaturated, so it shows up against that saturated skin. And also the darker color, we can add a little bit of water to. Notice I'm adding water to the darker color, but not the lighter color. And we're going to start adding some little marks, some beauty marks. So these streaks are going to be like little cracks in his turtle beak, mouth, whatever the heck it is. Tink is a young turtle, but he's still kind of crickety, you know, like he's got some moving and grooving going on, you know what I mean? So yeah, we're going to make some little bitty textures to kind of enhance the way his mouth looks. Put some in there. Again, I'm being real light with my touch, so that those lines are very, very thin. Just wanted it to look like kind of like his little beak or upper lip here is aged. And put some little highlights on those cracks. These are like super, super teeny tiny. Let's see if we can't get it to show up a little bit better. Sometimes you just gotta keep doing it until it finally clicks. Surprising how much white you need in this to actually be able to see it. Lots of tiny little lines. Maybe, I don't know. Would it be weird if we put a little bit of pink into his lips? I don't think it'll be weird. It might be weird. So let's thin that out quite a bit. Turtles don't have pink lips, but orcs do. And Tank is really, really green. Just like those old school GW orcs from back in the day. Sometimes it's good to add things to your paint jobs that are familiar. Plus, Tank's kind of boxy and orcish looking, so everyone's seen an orc with the pinkish tones around the lips. It looks really cool. So we're going to add some familiarity to Tank. Just to see. And I'm just kind of, it almost feels like I'm dry brushing right on the edge of the lip. Let's go a little crazier. A little bit more red there. Just keep adding a little bit of red and see what happens. If it looks like crap afterwards, we can always knock it back down with some green. Maybe that's not too bad. All right, we'll keep. We'll add a little bit of yellow and green and white. And we're going to add a few little wrinkles back here. So if you notice, wrinkles aren't just straight lines. They're kind of a zigzaggy mess. Well, let's take a look at some reference pics. Check out the wrinkles in this cute little old lady. Notice the lack of straight lines at all. Here's a picture of elephant skin. The wrinkles are deeper and more defined because of the thicker skin. Getting up closer, it almost looks like marble or a lightning strike. Notice that all of the highlights are on the underside of the wrinkles, just like chipped paint or scratches on a sword. Also, the highlights are stronger on the bigger wrinkles and almost non-existent on the smaller ones. Here's a great example of how the individual wrinkles near the eye tend to combine and form little triangle and diamond shapes. The skin on your forehead and neck are going to have less wrinkles than, say, the eye or around the mouth, due to the constant movement and squishing of the skin. So the wrinkles on these areas are going to be not straight lines, but straighter lines. They're going to have less diamonds and triangle shapes in them. Here's some things that I've found that'll make your wrinkles look really, really good. All right, so let's say we're painting some wrinkles on a neck. Basically what I would do is I'd mix up a little bit lighter color or more vibrant color of my base tone. In this case, it's a dark bluish black. And basically we're going to have some of these wrinkles coming like this, but I'm not going to do one straight from this side to that side. I'm going to do smaller ones. Maybe have like a few that are maybe a little bit longer, just depending, but they'll never be in a straight line. I just keep adding in lighter color or brighter color. But what I want to do is just enhance certain wrinkles. Like that. Maybe there's maybe the ligament that comes through here would get a little bit more light on it, so maybe everything would be highlighted right in that area, that type of thing. So, but as you can see, the wrinkles look a little bit more natural because it's not just straight lines, and none of them end where the next one begins. They all kind of overlap a little bit. Now, if you want to make even tighter wrinkles, like say it's really wrinkly skin, maybe down here would be a little bit more wrinkly than the other areas. So maybe that's where our wrinkles start turning into something more like this. Maybe there's more of them. So it's a more concentration, and we start getting our little triangles and diamond shapes right in there. But if you notice, while I start to paint Tank here, my finger gets real wiggly, and there's a lot of dotting. There's a lot of dotting to these, so I can get the color coming in and out and more, kind of more believable, I think, in that respect. Maybe we'll just add a little bit more. I'm going to add some straight white to this so I can get some real good spots. Edge highlights on a couple of these things, maybe where the wrinkle is just really, really deep. Or just where I want to bring attention to a part on the model. That's pretty good. So something like this, I think this would need to be broken up a little bit more. It's too big. And then maybe some darker shades in there so it's not quite as weird. Other things that you can do, sometimes the wrinkles break off, kind of almost like lightning. So you can get these little things, that little bits of skin that wrinkles out and then comes back into the main wrinkle. That looks cool too. So play around with it, see what you like, look at those references, and try it out. Some wrinkles under this. Try not to make perfectly straight lines, always making them a little bit jiggly and definitely uneven. And nothing goes from right to left, it's always a little back and forth, back and forth. Maybe on the back of the head a little bit. Give them some human attributes back there. And do like a desaturated version of this, just in a couple spots. And we will put some of these highlights up here. All right. Put some right on the tips of the eyebrows. I'm just putting little dots though, because I don't want it to be too crazy. Little bitty dots. And put some dots up here. I swear to God, I always know what it is with this eye. that is that spot right there, and this one's gonna be right here. Little final highlights. Put a couple final highlights on his shoulders. Maybe the simulation of a little bit of texture there. There. Tops of his feet. His toenails are going to get... They're black right now. We're going to do a little gray highlight at the tops of them. And then one more. More dot highlight. I see I messed that up. This one, but I can just clean that off. Little dots up there. And fix that dot right there. All right. I think that's that. And do some stuff to these back here. So some tiny dots right there. More up here. Hit a highlight on that fin, or whatever the heck that is. Miss some paint up there. All right. That's that. And now we're going to grab the airbrush and tie everything together. All right, so we're on to the airbrushing phase. I'm going to be using my Renegade Chrome airbrush. Typically, I use the Sotar 2020 for this, but I lost my Sotars at Adepticon, so I'm using the Chrome. It's basically the exact same airbrush. So I'm going to be using inks today for a couple of reasons. First off, they spray through your airbrush without clogging as fast as normal acrylics. This gives us the opportunity to use airbrushes like the Sotar 2020 and the Chrome. They come with much smaller needles and can be very precise when you're airbrushing with them. Second, inks are packed with color. This makes them highly effective when sprayed in small amounts. Couple that with their transparent properties, and they're perfect for enhancing the work that you've already done. Lastly, inks are semi-gloss. And before you go and dull coat over them, hear this. The semi-gloss properties make your shadows look darker. They also make colors look more vibrant and alive. I hear a lot of people complain that when they put their paint on, it goes on chalky or looks almost dusty. This is typical for flat, matte paints. The semi-gloss nature of inks will help cut that dusty effect of the paint. Alright, so these are the inks we're going to use today. First up, we have Daler-Rowney's FW series. We're going to be using Sepia and Payne's Gray. We'll also be using Liquitex Vivid Lime Green ink. Okay, first, all you seasoned airbrushers out there, I want you to forget everything you know about airbrushing. This may be actually easier for people who haven't airbrushed before. First off, let's crank our PSI up to 40. Second, we're not going to thin our inks at all. Now, these two things will probably put you completely out of control at first, but you got to promise me, I will try it. No, seriously, I want you to say it out loud. I promise. So the higher air pressure atomizes your paint better. Your paint comes out in tiny little dots, but the lower your pressure is, the bigger those dots will get. So raising our pressure to 40 is going to give us a nice fine mist. And this will make your airbrushing way smoother. And keeping your inks at a full 100% of their original capacity will give you much more vivid color. So we got us some Payne's Gray ink. I'm going to put in 2-3 drops. You don't need a whole lot. Let's take this Miniature Monthly business card, and I'm going to show you what it looks like at 100%. So this is pulling the needle back like all the way, and it's going to get crazy here. So that's 100% ink, and that is not good. See how I hit just the air and a little bit of paint came off? That's a dry spray. It's spraying no paint at all, just air. And basically you do this to get the paint that's stuck on the tip of the needle off of it. If you don't do that, you could end up with some speckly paint the next time you spray. Now, why does it not do this when you only spray lightly? Well, no paint builds up on the tip of the needle. So those light little 10% sprays are perfect. So you see here, that's really, really strong. What we want to do when we're airbrushing is you're going to learn to control how far back you pull on the trigger. So pushing down is air, pulling back is paint. So remember in the last tank episode, when we were drawing little teeny tiny little lines and I showed you how to pull the brush and just keep getting closer and closer and closer and finally see it hit. Same thing is going to happen here with the airbrush. So I'm going to put my reading glasses on so I can see up nice and close and personal. And what we're going to try to do is hit like 10%. So I'm pushing down, I'm pulling back just a little bit. Do you see that little bit happened? So that's probably 50%. So get good at hitting these little 10%ers. I just pull back a little bit more. Now, the beauty of inks is your airbrush won't clog nearly as fast. So you can do this for quite a while without anything bad happening. You can be pretty confident in how far back you got to pull on your airbrush. So when I'm putting these colors on tank, I will be putting in just a little bit at a time, just like that much. But then if I want a little bit more, I put a little bit more. If I want a little bit more, put a little bit more. And that's how I can control the tone of color. To see how the ink works against different colors, I'm going to use my color chart here with all these little circles on it. This is actually a thank you card. If you ever win one of the Miniature Monthly giveaways, you'll get one of these. And if you're lucky, maybe you'll get this one. So I'm going to put a little 10% spray. All right. And let's see what that looks like over the red. And over the yellow, and over the green. So, as you can see, the color changes just a little bit each time I spray it. Now, if it goes half and half over the red and the white. So, the properties of the paint under it will pick up through the Payne's Gray because it is a transparent ink. I do not use any water in my inks at all. I don't use any thinners, nothing. And the reason for this is the inks are already thin enough to go through your airbrush. You don't need to thin them anymore. And if you do, they tend to get too watery and they do things like have like a spidery effect. It doesn't work out as good. So you want to control your ink instead of by how much you thin it, you want to control it by how much you spray. So get real good at pulling this trigger back just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit. And that will do you well. Let's try this out on an older model in my collection. I'm going to shade these areas right over here and using 10% sprays. I'm going to start with her mid section here. So far no paint has come out. And this is where you got to be patient, I swear to God. can't tell what's happening. Okay. Okay, now it's starting to come out just a little bit. So I shaded that side. I'm going to shade the side of her leg. Just a little bit. And we're talking about minute amounts. There. And maybe we'll spray a little bit in the back in here. Up under there, under her boob. I think I'm going to spray back into on her cape, little cape here. Real lightly. I'm going to spray the back side of it as well. And even up, way up high. That gives me just a subtle change in color. I'm going to spray back inside that cape. So knock those colors all down. So that now she stands out really well. I'm going to do it on this side too. Perfect. Now I'll do the inside of this foot. And the inside of that leg. And I think that works. Let's do the top of this shoulder pad. Just not the top of the shoulder pad, but a little part. There we go. Let's even shade part of her face. Just to see. There. Alright, and that's how you enhance that shadow. This is the Renegade Chrome Airbrush. It's a fine detail brush from Badger. It comes with a 0.2 needle and this cool little thing in the back, which I have no clue what it does. No, actually, this just regulates how far you can pull back on the trigger. So with normal acrylics, I never use this. With inks, you can use them. I prefer not to, though. Basically, when you pull back, it only lets you go back so far. So if you want to control the volume of paint that's coming out of your airbrush, use that. If you're getting started, it might be a good idea to do that. The only problem is you can't do hard sprays. You can only pull back so far. So I prefer not to use this at all. To tell if your ink is transparent or opaque or semi-transparent, you want to look for these little squares on the sides of the ink. A solid white square is opaque, and an open square is transparent, and then if there's a little slash through it and it's half opaque, half transparent, it's semi-opaque. So that's important to note. Usually the darker colors are transparent and the lighter colors are opaque. The sepia here is a dark brown. It's like kind of a yellowish brown. It's kind of weird. And I just put it in my airbrush, no thinning or anything. This is a dark brown, but it is a little bit transparent. So that's going to help us out. And we can spray this kind of generally over everything. I've got all my paints out in case I have to do some quick touch-ups in between. I think I'm going to pull the arm off. And let's start with the arm, or with the shield. So shield goes like this. This is the back side. This is the part that's going to be that should be a little bit darker. So I'm just airbrushing it a little bit darker. And you're going to see on my hand how dark that gets. See, it's not very much. So just going to spray a little bit on the back of the shield. Back side up here, maybe at the top. It's barely coming out. the underside of these arms. Little bit, just a little bit darker than what it was. All right, and we're gonna grab this guy and spray it down on his pants. Back in here. So our light is predominantly on this side, and this side's the darker side. So I'm actually going to knock this side down just a little bit to give us a little bit more contrast. And put it up in his face a little bit. Here in the N and M. Down there in the tail. Pants. Okay, so that was the brown. All right, now we're going to switch to Payne's Gray. And I love this stuff because it's just the dropper bottle. It pops in there. So that's a nice dark blue. And I'm going to spray a little bit on the bottom. Of that piece of armor. And up on this piece of armor up here. Under the arm. And this part of armor. The nice thing is you can get rid of bad blends if you have them, which is kind of nice. All right, see how I sprayed right over the wrinkles on the back of the head? The fact that I spray at about 10% of the full strength of the ink and the transparent properties of the ink makes it so you can see those wrinkles right through my shadow. So I don't destroy the wrinkles. They're still there, just a different tone. I'm just kind of hitting all these areas. When you hear me do those little sprays off camera, I'm not spraying ink. I'm actually just spraying air. And that helps me clear the nozzle. If there's any ink left on the tip of the needle, I knock it off with that little hard spray. Psh, psh, like that. That way when I go to spray on the model again, it doesn't splatter on me. Good, I'm going to spray up under that piece of armor again. Back in the neck. Now, if you're kind of strategic, you can actually spray things out without having to tape a whole bunch of stuff off. Now, I am going to add some highlights here. Well, I got all this ink out and my airbrush out. So now this is where we start going back and forth between your paintbrush and your airbrush. Let's make a black highlight. We got our black, white. Need some more white. So we're going to remake our highlight for our metallic sections. And I want it to be really, really close to white or white. And here we go. You can see where going back and forth from your airbrush to your paintbrush to your airbrush to your paintbrush can be pretty awesome. Right, so I'm refining the metallic parts. And even though we started off wanting them to be a kind of a dull metallic, we need them to be a little bit shiny so that we can differentiate between the metallic parts of the model and the fabric parts of the model. This way we have better contrast between the different elements, and it's very easy to see what is what. You see how it's really important to have this, especially with metallics, to have that jump from a sort of almost a mid-tone color to next to white. And it ends up making things look really, really shiny. But it won't do that unless you have that jump. If you blend it gradually up to white, it doesn't work. It's got to just jump. make some of the peach color, peach cobbler of the copper. Find that if you just make little lines on these on the cones, and just make the line shorter and shorter as it goes up to the top, it's a little bit easier. As with all projects, a little paint rubs off, especially, that's one thing I hate about these types of cones, is their propensity to rub off. Let's do one last little bit of highlighting on the shield here. This is I'm painting with almost pure white, but coming in it from a distance so I can see how my contrast is working. This is what I do with all my models. At the end, I fix any and all lighting issues. So if there was something that's been bugging me for a while, this is the time to fix it. All right, we'll give it a quick once over, and I think we're ready to do some final glazes. To make this glaze, I'm going to do a combination of the Necrolite green and the Iosan green. Maybe a little more Necrolite green than the Iosan. And what this is going to do is create like sort of a mid-tone-ish color. And that's what I want to tie things together. You know, spray a little bit of my isopropyl alcohol distilled water mix in there. But with my normal airbrushing, I always thin my paints just to the point that they'll go through the airbrush. But for this, I want to go a little bit thinner. That's kind of see-through-ish color. Now let's do a little test. This first swatch is full strength, 100% right out of the pot paint. And you can see it's thick, it's not very see-through. The second test is my consistency I use for normal airbrushing. So this is just thin enough for the paint to go through the airbrush. And my third test is my airbrushing glaze consistency. This is what you're going to use to smooth out your blends and make your midtones look better. This is super thin down, but not too thin. So this is what you want it to look like. Now, we need to spray the areas up on his face, and I'm afraid that that will hit the other painted areas. I don't want green on there. So what I'm going to do is mask it off. And our culprit for masking today will be Blu Tack. Basically what I do is I smash it out into thin wafers like this. And usually I try to get one straight side, and that way I can place it over the model. Now I prefer Blu Tack to anything else because it doesn't stick. Well, it sticks just enough, but not so badly that it messes things up. And then I'll take my sculpting tool, move it down towards the skin, under this area, so that when I airbrush it won't mess it up. The key to this is, doesn't matter how thick the outside edge is, but the inside edge that's going to touch the model or be right next to where you want it masked off needs to be pretty thin. Because the thicker it is, it starts getting in the way. But a thin layer like that is perfect. And we'll see. You can see just how much that covers. And we're going to spray from the angle of the light source. And I'm just kind of bringing up the levels of light there, smoothing everything out. It's really one of those things where you almost can't tell that it's going on. That's what you want. Little bitty taps make it perfect. All right, so a little bit more on this side. And I think I want to actually make it even a little bit brighter. So I'm going to pour that color out. Make a little highlight with this vivid lime green. Thought things were bright before. Think again. Can't tell if it's coming out, just shoot your finger. This color is opaque, but it definitely builds up slowly. I think I'll leave that. So we'll just peel away our mask, and voila. Now you may be thinking, hey, you got rid of some of those lines and stuff, and they're still there, but if I want to just kind of retouch some spots. I mess it up, I just come back in with my other color, knock that back down. And we'll make pinkish ochre. And the eyes pink. make a gray. We'll just take a gray that I already have. You can see at the end of a paint job, I've got all these colors out, and I just start grabbing from all of them. And even if it's not a color that I originally made a color with, if it's close enough, it's close enough. And I'll make this weird brown color for the eyes. A lot of turtles have brown eyes. I'm sorry, black eyes, like my soul. But the ones that do have pupils, they're usually pretty big. So thank goodness for that. Thank God Patrick Keith sculpted these eyes big. I think those are looking in the same direction. Kind of, sort of. But I'll just put that little highlight there. The edges of the irises. Messed up. Find a dark color. Okay, there's that. When it's upside down, you can see the spots you missed. Strange. Sculptors say that too. You want to know how off you are, turn the model upside down. It's bugging me. Like that. All right, so now we've got to make this These eyes really orangey brown at the very bottom. Their eyes are see-through, so they collect all the color and light at the bottom of the iris, or so they say. Alright, now I'm going to use a little bit of black ink. Black ink flows a little bit better. I think I can nail those irises just right, because they got to be teeny tiny. And then we put our little dot of white. Holy moly, this is getting tedious. All right, did you see? Not only did I wipe some of the paint off on my finger, but I also rolled the brush just a little bit to keep that point nice and fine. Put a couple little wrinkles back here by its eyes. Just to give him some wisdom. Couple little on each side. Woohoo! We finished the paint job on Tank. So what did we learn? 1. We learned the importance of tiny details on Tank's skin. 2. We added some familiarity by giving Tank both human and orc traits. 3. We learned all about inks and how they're great for building deeper shadows and more vivid color. 4. Higher air pressure means smooth airbrushing. Number 5. We learned some brush control with our airbrush. 6. We learned to deepen our shadows with our airbrush without ruining our already painted miniature. 7. We learned to adjust our highlights and smooth out our blends by applying a glaze with our airbrush. 8. We did a final adjustment to our non-metallic metal highlights and made them sparkle in the sun. 9. We learned that some turtle eyes are black, like my soul. Alright folks, that's a wrap for today. Dinner's on the table and I gotta go. Stay tuned for next episode where we create Tank's custom base. That's right, it's going to be a good one. So until then, go paint something.